inside boxes.
I was afraid you were going to pull something like this on me. That is a hell of a piece of work. I mean, if we were to do something like that today, we use what they have, these computer-driven CNC machines, which have diamond tips, and you have a template that, you know, the computer follows, and even then, it may not come out as perfect.
Because even though you can tell that obviously this piece broke off, nowhere in here can you see any imperfection. It's like, and by the way, when you're there, if you go with your finger over these edges and you put a little pressure on your fingertip, you can cut yourself. This is how sharp the edges are. But where could the ancient peoples have developed such technology? Is it really possible that extraterrestrial visitors provided different construction methods and tools?
When I saw these blocks, I didn't really think that they were cut. The first thing really that I thought of was this appears very similar to Frank Lloyd Wright's textile block system of construction, which uses California houses in the early 1920s. What he did was he took concrete poured into wood.
There actually are ancient Incan legends that suggest that they had the capability
人的时间呢，真的超级歪，英语差的，真的。
gigantic stone walls, where it looks as if those stones were molten
慢慢叫咁樣啦，係 overload。
and then the stone hardened again. Is it possible that the precision cut stones at Pumapunku are really the product of extraterrestrial technology? Perhaps further clues can be found halfway around the world. With an ancient civilization that was found buried beneath the earth. Located more than 500 miles away from the crowded streets of Istanbul, Şanlıurfa, in southeastern Turkey. There, in 1994, on a dusty hilltop, a local shepherd noticed the tip of a stone sticking out of his field. He began to dig, eventually unearthing a 19-foot pillar. Its edges were precise, and rising from its center was a relief carving of a strange animal. On closer examination, it appeared that the finely chiseled stone had been fashioned by talented stonemasons, working with advanced tools. When word of the discovery reached the scientific community, one fact became obvious. A Kurdish shepherd had stumbled upon what is perhaps the most astonishing archaeological discovery in modern times, a site known as Göbekli Tepe.
For 13 years, a German archaeology team has been meticulously going into a hill, and they have been doing carbon dating as deep as they go. It has taken them 13 years to uncover only 5% of a gigantic civilization. They know what's under the ground. Circles upon circles upon circles, perfect circles in stone. And rising up out of those stone circles are huge sculpted columns, 19 feet high, 15 tons per column.
Test results have supported the idea that Göbekli Tepe is nearly 12,000 years old, almost 7,000 years older than Mesopotamia's Fertile Crescent, long heralded as the cradle of civilization.
In Göbekli Tepe, the oldest advanced site now on our planet. We know of no other site that is this advanced. It is now double the history of humanity.
And right there is this
huge megalithic circular structures. It just stands there, a mystery, asking us to go figure, how was this done? What's the background to this? We don't know who made them. They just come out of the darkness of the last ice age where we know nothing and enter the stage of history already fully formed. And to my mind, this is indicative of a major forgotten episode in human history.
Curiously, after 13 years of digging, archaeologists investigating the ancient site have failed to recover a single stone-cutting tool. Neither have they found any agricultural implements.
How in the world can you contemplate 19-foot tall, perfectly sculpted columns that are 11 to 12,000 years old and no tools?
The mystery of Göbekli Tepe is further compounded by the ancient stone carvings found throughout the site. They depict creatures like wild boars and geese.
We see various types of creatures, different animals, birds, insects, and even abstract human forms that seem to come together to create this very weird menagerie which has totally baffled the archaeologists who have uncovered this site. Now, what they represent is a matter of speculation, but it's my intuition that they may even represent a ark in stone.
Located less than 350 miles from Mount Ararat, the site many biblical scholars believe to be the resting place of Noah's Ark, the animal carvings of Göbekli Tepe suggest a time in the region's history when the indigenous animal population may have been of a totally different origin. Do these carvings actually provide historical proof of the great flood that was described in the Bible?
Archaeologists are aware that there are more than 2,000 myths of a great flood which destroyed an earlier civilization.
Some researchers theorize that the events of a cataclysmic flood and a story similar to that told of Noah's Ark was recorded on the stone pillars of Göbekli Tepe. If true, that would push the date of the Great Flood back to the end of the last ice age, far earlier than the biblical period.
There is evidence that this may have ended quite catastrophically. There was a lot of things happening, a lot of migrations, possibly waters rising up very quickly, a lot of rapid changes in lifestyles.
But another, perhaps even more profound question remains. Who built Göbekli Tepe? For what purpose? And how did such an ancient site remain in nearly pristine condition for more than 10,000 years?
In the case of Göbekli Tepe, we find that the site was carefully placed underneath sand. This site was buried. It appears as if somehow the usage of Göbekli Tepe was no longer there, and that people moved on, but had such a reverence to this important site that rather than destroy it, they put it to peace by burying it.
Is it possible that the people at Göbekli Tepe had such reverence for the site because it really was built with the help of alien technology? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and claimed further evidence that extraterrestrials were behind the construction of the world's most mysterious structures can be found in Lebanon by examining the site that dates back nearly 9,000 years. Eastern Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley. Here, at this archaeological site, stand the ruins of Heliopolis, built in the 4th century BC by Alexander the Great to honor Zeus. But beneath the Corinthian columns and remnants of both Greek and Roman architecture lie the ruins of a site that is much, much older. According to archaeologists, it dates back nearly 9,000 years. The ancient city of Baalbek, named after the early Canaanite deity Baal.
Baal is the god of life, the god of the sky, the god of the sun. He was the god that was venerated on the site of Baalbek during the Canaanite and the Phoenician times.
And so because it was already sacred to the god Baal, then later the Greeks and the Romans then would build temples on this very same spot.
Archaeological surveys have revealed that the enormous stone foundation that lies at the base of the site dates back tens of thousands of years.
Baalbek, as we know from the archaeological evidence, must have existed during the Neolithic period, between 6 to 8,000 years or even 9,000 years BC.
But even more significant to ancient astronaut theorists is their belief that the colossal stone platform may once have served as a landing pad for space travelers.
We don't know why Baalbek was chosen as this specific site. It may well be some kind of special power place. But what was originally there, before the Roman temple, was this spaceport platform that was apparently used for extraterrestrials coming and going on planet Earth.
As evidence, researchers point to the gigantic megalithic stones incorporated into the foundation, each weighing between 800 to 1,200 tons, and perfectly fitted together.
This is the real mystery of Baalbek. How these stones came to be there, why they were placed there, and specifically how they were transported into place. Because some of the stones are of such magnitude that modern machinery is incapable of putting them there. But somehow our ancestors were able to do this.
Some have suggested that this stone alone weighs in excess of 1,200 tons. How was it moved there? Because obviously it's situated on top of these stone rows that we can find down here, which means that this stone had to be lifted and then sit on top of these stones down here.
And because these stones were gigantic, ancient people assumed that extraterrestrial or unknown forces brought them to the site itself.
It is one of the oldest megalithic sites on the planet, and it has these huge stones laid out in a precise geometrical shape at a time when the prehistoric people who would have lived there, who would have gone to the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, would have no concept of how to move stones of that nature.
But if the moving, hoisting, and setting of such massive stones was so incredibly difficult, then who or what placed them there? And perhaps more importantly, why?
We know that the ancients always went to power places, and Baalbek clearly is one of them. It is a place where the gods were worshipped, where the gods were said to be present. And so when it comes to Baalbek, this platform was built there for a reason. For what purpose it was used is a question we can't answer at this moment in time. But what we do know is that whatever was happening there had a great religious significance to them and was linked with worshipping deities. Deities which clearly are of an otherworldly origin.
Is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists believe, that Baalbek had been considered a sacred place for tens of thousands of years because it was where extraterrestrial beings first arrived on Earth? Perhaps the answer can be found by examining other megalithic stones on Easter Island. The South Pacific Ocean. 2,300 miles west of South America, in one of the most remote places on Earth, giant stone figures stand with their backs to the sea.
chiefs, and then upon their death, we believe that they become represented in stone.
Nearly 900 moai were carved between the 12th and 18th centuries. Hewn with stone tools from volcanic rock, the tallest stands a towering 33 feet high and weighs a staggering 75 tons.
They were probably even more unique looking in the past. They may have been painted, and they also had large white coral eyes, obsidian pupils. So it's a very effective way of telling people, not verbally, but symbolically, that someone's watching you and you should toe the line. You should do what you're supposed to do.
The people who created the moai called themselves the Rapa Nui, and mainstream historians believe their Polynesian ancestors came to the island in canoes from across the vast Pacific Ocean between 700 and 1100 AD. But over several centuries, for reasons that are still unclear, what was once an island paradise withered into a treeless desert, stalked by famine, violence, and some say cannibalism. When the first Europeans arrived in 1722, the Rapa Nui culture had already been nearly wiped out. And few could imagine how such primitive people could have created the moai.
How in the heck did they make these? Where did they come from? And how did they move them? Nobody has the answer.
Modern scientists have tried, and so far have failed, to duplicate the feats of the ancient Rapa Nui. In 1987, anthropologist Charles Love used rollers to move a 9-ton moai replica at Western Wyoming Community College.
Ready on 3. 1, 2, 3. Good.
structures in North America.
你數可以繞
A
環
stone garden made of sculpted blocks of ancient coral. Some weigh 30 tons. It's called the Coral Castle. Spread over several acres, the complex formations and intricate designs of the stone walls and sculptures marvel tourists. But unlike other great structures around the world,
意外到塞啊邊咧，真係。
Coral Castle in Florida is often said to be the only modern megalithic structure ever built.
繞環
In 1923, Ed Leeds Skolnick, a Latvian immigrant, began building what he originally called Rockgate Park. But believe it or not, Leeds Skolnick insisted that he was not using modern machinery to build the impressive structure. He also claimed that he was working alone.
Well, Ed was a hermit, and Ed was a loner, and he was a foreigner, and he was a recluse, and a scientist. He was in love with a woman, and he wanted to build this facility in memory of her, and he waited for her to come from Europe, and he waited, and he waited, and she never did. But the big question is how did this frail little man move these thousands of pounds of block by himself?
Barely over 5 feet tall and weighing just 100 pounds, Leeds Skolnick is said to have carved, moved, and hoisted huge multi-ton stones using only a makeshift tripod.
He has a tripod, 3 pieces of Florida pine, and he's got some chains, and he's now going to lift 30 tons, 10 tons of rock. Can't be done. No one could do that. He would work at night. He wouldn't let anybody watch him. And he said that he knew the secrets of the pyramids.
But what exactly was Leeds Skolnick referring to? Had he rediscovered the same advanced technology used to build megalithic structures like Karnak and Göbekli Tepe?
And over again would tell people that he knew the secrets that helped the Egyptians build the pyramids. What was he talking about? Why was he constantly harking back to the Egyptians? We don't know.
Leeds Skolnick continued work on the Coral Castle until his death in 1951. In the journals he left behind, the builder explained that he had discovered the ancient secret of transforming stones into weightless objects.
And it says this in his pamphlet, The Magnetic Current, that real gravity is actually real magnet. So if you reverse the magnet force with a force of some kind of electromagnetic, radio perhaps, frequency, you can then make these rocks not as heavy
一百萬年
as they seem
繞晒
otherwise, and therefore you can lift them.
But if Leeds Skolnick had developed a device that could modify gravity, what was the secret? Some suggest the answer lies in a mysterious black box that can be seen in various photographs. A box that has since disappeared.
真的是媽的 fucking 雞巴！
The black box sitting on top is the element that no one has ever seen except in those
你數
pictures.
可以
And
繞
no
晒
one has today.
了繞
We
晒
believe that black box has something to do with how we got these massive, heavy, brittle pieces of rock up in the air in a way that no one can
繞晒
duplicate.
了繞
He had
晒
some kind of magnetic machine down in one of his other house areas that has since been dismantled, but it had a revolving ability. He may have been having that thing spin. The whole place could have been anti-gravity.